Now the challenge that comes along with the bike lanes that I showed you here is when conditions of parking come into place. Now when the bike lane is between the travel lane and the parking location. There's several folks in Madison City Council that has recently come out and decided that they want to make it or develop a city ordinance that says if you park your vehicle here and you open up your driver's door and you happen to take out a bicyclist, all right, so this whole dooring thing, that needs to be penalized significantly. Because one of the safety issues with this is obviously the doors flying open in the parked vehicles, right? Y'all agree with that? So there's a challenge going on in the city or back in Madison where, you know, those type of facilities don't interact well. And we're trying to find ways to better deal with that. But that's a commonly used application. Sharing lanes between bicycles and vehicles are a little bit more challenging, especially if you have limited cross-sectional space for that lane. But that's commonly used. And here again, from a bicycle standpoint, you have to be careful of the parked vehicles and people entering and exiting their vehicle as you travel along. One of the newer methodologies for dealing with bikes, especially as you get to intersections, is extending the bicycle facilities in what's called an offset marking type format. And there's a couple of ways that's being done, but here's an example where we're trying to stop the vehicles a little bit farther back and create an opportunity for the bikes to bypass the queue, so to speak, and to get up into the front end of the system. Therefore, bikes can be better accommodated in the overall traffic flow. This is a picture. I was in Australia recently, so this is a picture of how Australia does it. In fact, they go a step further by not only providing the bike lane, but they put the bikes, you know, literally in front of the vehicles to accommodate them and give them the first opportunity to get in and out. So why did they do that? Well, more visibility to the bike, so there's some safety improvements. But bicycling is being encouraged. You know, so regardless if you're at the, you know, the high urban area, the local street area, it provides more opportunity for bicycles as well as a safer environment for bicycles to address. Yeah.
Could you go back to that picture?
Sure.
Is there a bike lane then there?
Yeah. So this is Australia. So you have to remember it's opposite.
Right. So
Yeah. So
pull up and go.
Yeah.
Move your bike in front of this vehicle.
Yeah. So you can come up, drive all the way past the queue and jump in front of the queue if you're a bicyclist. So on that red. Okay. One of the neat things that's been done in the U.S., and maybe some of you have heard about this, was out in Portland, and it's called the Blue Lanes. Anybody heard of that? Anybody looked at that? Did you see that? And so I thought I'd at least introduce that to you here. Obviously what it is we're going to paint some of the roadway blue where the bike lanes cross. And we're going to, or what they did is they're going to also add some yield to bike type roadway signage. So here's an example real quickly of what I'm talking about. So we're painting that crossing blue. Where did that come from? Well, it started in Europe. And the various countries that have done it, Sweden, Denmark, England, and then some things that were done in Montreal, Canada, have shown very positive results. That by defining or color differentiating that crossing location, safety improvements have been identified to, you know, various percentages with that type of accommodation. So Portland said, well, it makes sense to me. Let's go ahead and give it a try. They spent a lot of effort and a lot of money developing these bike lanes and developing these blue connections. So I'll just show you several of them. But what's also nice about what they've done is they've introduced this signage concept that goes along with it. So you see the yield to the blue lane and yield to bike. So vehicles coming in have a clear understanding that there's some potential yielding or crossing bicycle traffic that they need to be aware of. Some of the locations were very linear in nature, so here's a whole lane separating vehicle traffic from park traffic back here in terms of accommodating those bicycle facilities. Seem like a good idea? Think it might work? Portland found that it did work. So a significant increase in drivers yielding to cyclists. So it's gone from, you know, what they found beforehand, around 70% to over 90%. Drivers tend to be more cautious as they came to these locations. Some of the conflicts between bikes and vehicles decreased. Any potential negatives? So no question, cost. So you have to implement this system. Any others? In what way?
Maybe the extra yielding
Potentially, yeah, potentially. I don't think that was a big issue, sir.
Has it made bikers more inclined to go out in unsuitable weather?
Unsuitable weather?
Yeah.
I don't think that really, I mean, the hardcore bicyclists in these locations, I don't think weather really overly affects them. But I think you're heading down the right track, though, where I thought you were heading. Yeah.
They're less aware of their surroundings. They can just go without.
Beautiful. Yeah. So remember I said a little bit ago that this false sense of security. So what the follow-up research has shown that bicycles just go now. There's a blue lane. Everybody's looking out for me. I'm safe. Right? And they find that bicyclists have significantly decreased their so-called yielding and being conscientious of their surroundings. So have we improved safety? Yes, statistically, but I think there are some issues that go along with it. Overall, I think the blue lanes is a great idea and something that perhaps could be accommodated in other locations around the country. But something that always needs to be thought about is, not letting your guard down, so to speak, when you are on the other mode that's crossing there. All right, so let's switch a little bit here to pedestrian-related issues. Okay, I'm doing okay on time. Walking space pedestrian-related issues is obviously an important deal. One of the things that we have to think about is how to accommodate pedestrians as we begin to cross the roadways. And crosswalks exist, and we have to think about, well, where do we need them and how do we put them in? And there's some guidelines for how to install, when to install crosswalks, meaning the marked elements of the crosswalk, depending upon the type of intersection, or if you're trying to channelize, or if you're at a school, excuse me, etc. In fact, there's some research by Smith and Knobloch that looked at some guidelines for when to mark a crosswalk. But nevertheless, we all know by definition, even if there's no painting on the road, that when there's two sidewalks on the opposite end of an intersection, right, that by definition there's still a crosswalk there. It just may or may not be painted. One of the things that some of you may have come across is a study that was done by a fellow by the name of Charlie Zagier out of the University of North Carolina not too many years ago. And it actually created kind of a stir in the profession. And what Charlie found, and at least in the initial release of his study, was he looked at the safety elements of marked and unmarked crosswalks. And to make a long story short, to save some time here, essentially what he found was unmarked crosswalks were safer than marked crosswalks. Okay? And there's numerous reasons why that is. One of them goes back to this false sense of security related issue that we've talked about. And people, when there's not a marked crosswalk, people tend to be more conscientious about looking 3 or 4 times because you're going to have to sprint across the road, right? What this did, though, was create for the less informed individuals around the country, let's put it that way, decided, well, you know what, in my community, I got to start erasing all these crosswalks. All right, these things aren't as safe as I thought they were. And that obviously wasn't the message. Or at least I hope you understand that wasn't the message. Statistics don't lie. I mean, there's, depending on your ADT and the type of lanes, et cetera, I mean, there is some significant differences in the pedestrian crash rates that were identified. But there's, like in a lot of research, there's a lot of confounding variables and a lot of details that weren't exposed with the research to help us understand why you found the results that you did. And it turns out that the message here is not to remove all the crosswalks that exist, but understand that there are some other issues. Again, this false sense of security issue being one of them that goes along with it that have to be addressed and thought about as we use these types of facilities. Okay?